The bus driver stood up. He was a large man, and his face was red with anger. He looked down at the small woman sitting in the fifth row. The bus was silent. It was so quiet you could hear the rain hitting the roof. "I said, give me that seat," the driver shouted. The woman looked up. She was 42 years old. She was wearing glasses and a sensible coat. Her feet were tired from working all day. But her spirit was strong. 3 other people stood up to move. But she remained seated. She adjusted her glasses. She looked the driver in the eye and spoke one single, quiet word. "No." But before we find out how that one small word changed a nation. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast where history comes alive. I am your teacher, and today we are traveling back in time to the 1950s in the American South. In this episode, you will learn English by listening to the story of the American Civil Rights Movement. We are going to focus on one specific event, the Montgomery Bus Boycott. This is a story about courage, about walking, and about justice. To help you understand the narrative, we are going to focus on 3 specific power words that you will hear today: segregation, dignity, and boycott. Are you ready to walk toward freedom? Let's begin. It was December 1, 1955. The city was Montgomery, Alabama. In 1955, Alabama was a difficult place to live if you were African American. The laws at that time were called Jim Crow laws. These were laws of segregation. Let me explain that clearly. Segregation means the forced separation of people based on their race. In Montgomery, black people and white people could not use the same water fountains. They could not go to the same schools. And, most importantly for our story, they could not sit together on the bus. Rosa Parks worked as a seamstress at a department store. A seamstress is someone who sews and fixes clothes. It was hard work. She spent all day bending over, fixing hems, and ironing shirts. When the clock struck 5 p.m., Rosa was exhausted. Her neck hurt. Her feet ached. She walked to the bus stop to go home. She paid her fare at the front of the bus, then she had to step off the bus and enter through the back door. That was the rule. Black passengers were not allowed to walk through the white section at the front. Rosa sat down in the first row of the colored section. This was the middle of the bus. She placed her bag on her lap and closed her eyes for a moment. She just wanted to get home to make dinner for her husband, Raymond. As the bus drove through the city, more people got on. At the third stop, a group of white passengers entered. The white section at the front was full. The bus driver, a man named James Blake, looked in his rearview mirror. He saw a white man standing. Driver Blake stopped the bus. He walked down the aisle. He pointed at Rosa and 3 other black passengers sitting in her row. "Let me have those seats," he demanded. "Move back." In this situation, move back meant they had to stand up so the one white man could sit all alone in the row. It was a rule designed to humiliate them. To humiliate means to make someone feel ashamed or foolish. The other 3 passengers stood up. They were afraid. They didn't want trouble. But Rosa shifted in her seat. She moved her legs so the other passengers could pass her, but she did not stand up. She slid over to the window. The driver was furious. "Are you going to stand up?" he yelled. Rosa looked at him calmly. "No," she said. "Well, I'm going to have you arrested," the driver threatened. Rosa's voice was soft, but it did not shake. "You may do that," she replied. 2 police officers arrived. They took Rosa off the bus. They asked the driver if he wanted to press charges. He said yes. They took Rosa to the city jail. They took her fingerprints. They took her mugshot, her police photograph. Rosa Parks was not the first person to be arrested on a bus. But she was different. She was a woman of great dignity. Let's pause on that word. Dignity is the state of being worthy of honor or respect. It means being calm and serious, even when people treat you badly. Rosa was well respected in her community. She was quiet, religious, and hardworking. When the community heard that Rosa had been arrested, they were angry. Enough is enough, they said. A group of local leaders met in a church basement that night. Among them was a young preacher. He was only 26 years old. He had a deep voice and a powerful way of speaking. His name was Martin Luther King Jr. They decided they needed to send a message to the city. They decided to organize a boycott. A boycott is when a group of people refuses to buy a service or product as a way of protesting. They decided that no African American would ride the city buses on Monday, the day of Rosa's trial. They printed thousands of small flyers. They hid them in their pockets. They passed them out secretly. The message was simple: don't ride the bus on Monday. Take a taxi, share a ride, or walk. Monday morning came. It was cold. A dark mist covered the city. Dr. King sat by his window with a cup of coffee. He was nervous. He wondered if the people would listen. He wondered if they would be too afraid to walk. He looked out the window. The first bus of the morning was coming down the street. Usually, this bus was full of black workers going to their jobs. Dr. King held his breath. The bus drove past. It was bright yellow. And it was empty. Dr. King jumped in his car and drove around the city. He saw the next bus. Empty. He saw the third bus. Empty. Then, he saw the sidewalks. They were crowded with people. Men in work boots, women in maid uniforms, students with school books. They were all walking. Some of them had to walk 5 miles to get to work. 5 miles there and 5 miles back. But they were walking with their heads held high. They were walking with dignity. That night, thousands of people gathered at a church. The energy was electric. Dr. King stood up to speak. There comes a time, he shouted, when people get tired of being trampled over by the iron feet of oppression. The crowd roared. They decided that one day was not enough. They voted to continue the boycott until the laws were changed. They thought it might last a week. Maybe a month. They were wrong. The city of Montgomery refused to change the law. The police started harassing the people who were walking. They gave tickets to the carpool drivers. They even bombed Dr. King's house. But the people did not stop. Winter turned into spring. Spring turned into summer. The people kept walking. Their shoes wore out. Their feet developed blisters. But they did not get back on the bus. One day, an old woman was walking slowly down the road. She was leaning on a cane. A car stopped, and the driver asked, "Grandmother, aren't you tired?" The old woman smiled. She pointed to her feet and said, "My feet are tired, but my soul is at rest." What a powerful statement. My feet are tired, but my soul is at rest. Before we see how this battle ends, let's look closely at the power words that define this moment in history. Word number 1, segregation. As we discussed, this is the enforced separation of different racial groups in a country, community, or establishment. Example, in the 1950s, segregation laws prevented black and white children from attending the same schools. Word number 2, dignity. This is the quality of being worthy of honor or respect. It is an internal strength. Example, even though the police shouted at her, she walked away with dignity and did not shout back. Word number 3, boycott. To refuse to buy, use, or participate in something as a way of protesting. Example, the students decided to boycott the cafeteria until the food quality improved. Okay. The people of Montgomery have been walking for months. The bus company is losing a lot of money. But the law is still the law. How does it end? The fight moved from the streets to the courtroom. While the people walked, lawyers were fighting a legal battle. They argued that segregation on buses was unconstitutional. Unconstitutional means it goes against the Constitution, the highest law of the land in the United States. On November 13, 1956, almost 1 year after Rosa sat down, the Supreme Court of the United States made a decision. They looked at the laws in Alabama. They looked at the Constitution. And they ruled, segregation on public buses is illegal. The news reached Montgomery. The people cheered, but they waited. They waited for the official order to arrive. Finally, on December 20, 1956, the order arrived. The boycott was over. It had lasted for 381 days. 381 days of walking in the rain. 381 days of walking in the heat. The next morning, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood at a bus stop. A bus pulled up. The door opened. The driver, a white man, looked at him. Dr. King stepped onto the bus. He paid his fare. And then, he sat down in the very first row. Rosa Parks also rode the bus that day. She sat wherever she wanted. She looked out the window at the city she had helped to change. She was no longer just a seamstress. She was the mother of the civil rights movement. The Montgomery bus boycott did not end racism. It did not solve every problem. But it proved something important. It proved that ordinary people, people with tired feet and heavy coats, could change the world just by saying no to injustice. They showed that dignity is stronger than fear. Rosa Parks once said, "I had no idea that history was being made. I was just tired of giving in." Sometimes, we think we need to be rich or famous to make a difference. But Rosa taught us that you just need to know what is right, and stand your ground. The moral of the story is this: change happens when ordinary people decide that they have had enough. Now, I have a question for you. Have you ever seen a rule that you thought was unfair? Did you speak up, or did you stay silent? Tell me your story in the comments below. I want to hear about your courage. If you enjoyed this journey through history, and want to improve your English with more inspiring stories, please click subscribe and hit the bell. In the next episode, we are going to look at the space race, and learn the vocabulary of the stars. Thank you for listening. Walk with dignity, stand up for the truth, and I'll see you in the next story.